What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over some beginner tips and tricks for Halo Infinite's multiplayer. This is for people that maybe have just started, maybe this is the first Halo game they've ever played, or just relatively new to the franchise. So a couple things I do want to talk about the multiplayer. Some things are going to be obvious, some things are not. First thing is to play the objective, whatever it is. Now, again, this could be very simplistic, but the idea is you see, especially early on, I think it'll get better over time. A lot of people maybe just doing whatever they want, no matter what, the mode is. Now, I'm not opposed to getting some easy kills and stuff like that, but, if it's oddball, you have to focus on, the team. Actually, depending on whatever mode it is or any mode in general, you should be focused on whatever the mode actually is. Knowing your place is obviously a big part of that. If you are good at doing whatever the objective is, maybe that's your role. If you're good at vehicle play, maybe that's your role. I would say, if you're going to get in a vehicle, say in a capture the flag kind of mode, make sure that you can actually do it, right? Otherwise, you're kind of just wasting a vehicle. But play the objective and play as a team, and that really comes into place in no matter what mode it is, even in the deathmatch, any of those modes, right? Playing as a team, sticking with your team in certain circumstances, knowing, I guess, when to flank around. A lot of that stuff is generally, you have to kind of figure it out in the moment, right? No, another thing to do is pick your weapon, pick whatever your favorite weapon is, know what these weapons can do in general, and use the equipment at the right time. So obviously that's a lot of stuff going on. When you start, a match, any match, you're going to be given, right, 2 guns. And then the rest of the guns are kind of just out there to be found. You find the weapon that's, most suited to you. I know there's some people that are killer with the Needler. I'm okay. There's some people that are good with Halo's version of the shotgun. I actually got several. I think I got like a triple kill moment that was pretty epic in the game with the shotgun. Obviously, again, it also depends on the situation, but it depends on your play style, you know what I mean? And it also depends on what the guns are. Some guns are very good against shields. Also, some guns are better against vehicles than actual humans themselves, right? Or Spartans. So, knowing which gun can do what, but also just feeling, comfortable with the guns. That's part A. Part B is using the equipment. So one thing I do want to, again, I would even say for newer Halo players, would be grenades. So grenades are interesting because obviously if you're just watching, you see them just being thrown willy-nilly. Obviously that is a big part of Halo, and that there are some choke points in several maps that can just be like grenade fest. One thing to note though is grenades generally have a pretty small radius in terms of their explosion. So I would suggest being and I don't, again, I'm not like the prime or like a perfect example of this either, but really trying to place those grenades or throwing them when you really feel is necessary, because you obviously have to plan when they're going to explode from when you throw them. But again, the radius isn't all that big. So if you're just trying to throw them, again, like randomly and not really knowing where the enemy is, I would kind of wait until you can get some enemies bunched up, or some enemies like in a general area. That's when I would and those are just the general impact grenades. The sticky grenades, obviously you need to have a little bit better aim for that. And then in terms of equipment, again, knowing when to use it. So all of the equipment is use when you want to use it. It's not like when you pick it up you immediately have to use it. It goes in your equipment tab, and then you're able to use it whenever. The cloak, becoming invisible, the overshield, which is very, very powerful, and you'll run into some people that just will not die because they have basically like a double shield on. So just using them when the situation calls for it, but you don't have to use them right away. You can also switch grenades, by the way. For me, it's left on the D-pad. I use the controller, even though I'm playing on PC. I know that's probably a sin, but obviously you can change, the grenades as well. In terms of movement and in terms of actually firing at the other player, again, I'm not pretending to be some master at this, but Splitgate got me good, and then Halo is kind of like refining the skills that I've, achieved in that. A couple tips I would say with this, right? Halo is very much like Splitgate, because Splitgate is very much like Halo in the way that you need to consistently be moving. So if that means crouching, if that means, and I mean like when you're in combat too, crouching, jumping, sliding, and just generally moving back and forth. A lot of things you'll see very, very often is you and the other person you're firing at moving in the opposite direction, right? Like you'll move left, then you'll move right, left to right, or right to left, and they'll do the same thing. So I think you need to get good at moving constantly, right? But not like not necessarily like zigzags. Literally, I would probably say just moving left and right, but mixing it up with jumps, mixing it up with crouches, but also shooting across your body, because what tends to not happen is both you and your opponent moves in the same direction. Does that make sense? Very rarely will you move to your right and they will move to their left, which would then be the same as your right? So like that does not happen all that often. So a lot of the times you're firing kind of across yourself, and as long as you're okay with doing that, and I do mean like skill-wise okay with doing that, I think you're going to get a lot of kills. Another thing is making immediately when you're in a fight, and this is kind of just, something that you'll feel out when you're playing the game, having where you're going to be shooting, right, your aim, having it be like shoulder or higher, right, up. That way, when you're shooting, most of the time, if not all the time, you're always aiming for the head. Obviously, this has a lot of benefits for literally anything, especially if you start firing first, you're going to have, an advantage there, and you're probably going to kill the enemy first. But if you're aiming, again, generally, their chest plate up, and I would say trying to get your aim, right, at their head, and you just kind of keep it there. And again, even when you're crossing back and forth, you're obviously going to move, your aim left and right, but you don't really want to move it up and down. Does that make sense? You don't really want to move it up and down because you want to normally be trying to aim specifically for the head. I would also say one final thing is making use of the environment. That kind of goes with the whole movement and where to aim against somebody. But I really, a lot of the maps have like pillars, or they'll have just general cover. There'll be like buildings or, something like that you can hide behind or flank and go around. I would suggest using it as much as humanly possible. Again, it depends on the kind of weapon, because some weapons you can, like a battle rifle, you can kind of use from far away and again, aiming for the head. But some weapons you need to be, up close. Again, some weapons are better with shields. So it does depend. You're not always going to be like up close with the person. But again, that general movement and then using the environment to help you, right? It can break the line of sight. And also that is important because I guess final thing. Now, I don't want to come across stupid, and I also don't want to come across as just like uninformed, but I tested it a bit and I didn't really look it up, so maybe that's a mistake on my part. But I believe this game does it where if you're zooming in with any weapon and you get hit, it locks you out of zooming in. Correct me if I'm wrong and just leave the dislike now, but I believe that's how it works. It is tough. That is a lot tougher. That's actually why it comes into place, just generally aiming high and just kind of keeping your aim there, and you're not really going to move it much, right? Because if you're zooming in and then you get hit, you're out of the zoom, but you'll still be in the same relative range of where you're aiming. So that's an important thing. I also do believe if you break the line of sight, / if you kind of disembark the fight, if you kind of get away from it, it lets you zoom in again. So I would argue to try to do that as much as possible, right? If you get hit or you're zoomed in, you get hit, you're zoomed out. If you do a little something else besides firing at the person, it'll let you zoom in again. And that's maybe a small little thing that can give you the advantage. It depends on the weapon. Some weapons you don't need to zoom in at all. Sometimes you can just, no scope them, right, just in general. But if you need to zoom, then you need to kind of break the line of sight in general and kind of reset the game's internal system, however it measures that, okay? So let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. And more than all of that, let others know, anything else that you guys would consider, maybe more pro tips or tricks or anything you want other people to know about Halo Infinite's multiplayer. Let them know in the comments. Let me know. Make sure, as always, you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. There will be more Halo Infinite multiplayer vids. I do want to talk about just a general kind of review or impressions about this beta / actual multiplayer. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter or subscribe to my second channel or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, links for them all are in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.